This is GFree Radio. Here's your host, Peter Stewart.
The world's only weekly podcast for those people with celiac disease or who choose to live gluten-free. Hello, I'm Peter Stewart, and in this week's GFree Radio show, we give it up for the little guys, the men and women, though mainly women, who toil away for hours in farm shops and home kitchens or small industrial units or little cafes or local bakers, lovingly hand-making and serving gluten-free foods. Yeah, the big boys are in the supermarkets, and that's really handy, but sometimes it's great to know a person behind the product, rather than just a logo or a label. So listen up as we introduce you to three women who make and serve some great and unusual G-free fare. So that's 3 interviews this week for you. Also in the show, we'll mention the Scandinavian gluten-free food company that has the UK in its sights, changes to NHS GF prescriptions in Scotland, and if you're listening elsewhere around the world, this will possibly intrigue and infuriate you in equal measure. The what should we call ourselves debate, we have a bit more feedback on that, and also, as a follow-up from last week, a response from UK supermarket Tesco. Of sorts. All that in this week's edition of the GFree Radio Show. Join me, won't you?
Feel free for gluten-free, say feel free to polish off their pasta, devour their desserts, relish their ready meals, savour their savoury bakes, munch on their muffins, grab their granolas. Whew, there's certainly lots of choice in the Feel Free for gluten-free range. Visit feelfreefoods.co.uk.
So those 3 interviews to fit into this week's show. Let's crack on then so we can squeeze it all in. So this week, let's start off with that news then from the NHS, the National Health Service. If you're elsewhere around the world, you may not be aware that the National Health Service, British institution, paid for out of general taxation. And essentially what we can do in the UK is the NHS, the health service, is free at the point of delivery. So you can go to your doctor, your GP, if you've got an ache or an ailment, you don't feel well, and you don't have to pay anything. He will give you a prescription for your medicine that you can take along to a pharmacy, either a high street pharmacy or one in a supermarket or somewhere like that, and you can get your medication for free with a small charge at that particular point, unless you're from a particular group. Perhaps you don't have a particularly high income, something like that. And it's similar if you go into hospital. You don't have to pay when you go into hospital, and you don't pay for your drugs if you go into hospital either. If you're picked up by an ambulance, then that is free as well. Dental charges, you do have to pay a little bit towards that at point of delivery, if you like. But essentially, it is a free service, and that includes, for those of us who have gluten-free food in the United Kingdom, although there are variations around the country, as we shall see. Around the country, of course, because the United Kingdom is made up of England, Wales, Scotland and Ireland. So, even though there are changes from one area to another area inside those different nations in the United Kingdom, it's getting a bit complicated, isn't it? Essentially, you can go to your general practitioner, your family doctor, and if you are registered as a celiac or someone with celiac disease, then you can get a certain amount of gluten-free food on prescription. That gluten-free food has to have been verified that it is appropriate, and also it can be quite straightforward food. So, yes, there are biscuits/cookies, but they're very bland, basic biscuits and cookies. You can mostly get bread and pasta and oats and things like that. And you're thinking to yourself, really? Wow. That is really generous, isn't it? Yeah, so what do? I get a case of bread every month, and also some breakfast cereal, some fibre flakes, or maybe some porridge oats, some gluten-free oats, and maybe some pasta. Always bread, and either a flakes or a pasta or oats. I rarely get anything else. And I pay for that because I don't fall into the category of having a low income, which is very, very fortunate. I pay for that with a yearly pass, if you like. So I pay up front a smaller charge, and that covers all of my prescriptions, all my medication that I may want during the course of the year. Not just the gluten-free stuff, but if there was something else I needed for another reason, then I can get that as well. So that was quite long-winded, wasn't it? That took about 3 minutes. But just to set up the situation for people who are listening perhaps in other countries, we are very, very fortunate. Oh, incidentally, you can't just get however much gluten-free product you want. It's up to a certain limit, and each of those different products I mentioned, and there are pages of them, all made by various manufacturers, incidentally, have a certain number of points, and depending on which area, which town that you live in, you can only have a certain number of points for your gluten-free food every month. So I'm well below my points quota, incidentally. It sounds quite complicated, but it does mean that essentially you've got to go back to your general practitioner every single month to get a repeat prescription, which can be a little bit long-winded. Now, the point of what I'm coming to is now. The Scottish Gluten-Free Food Service is an NHS service available through your local pharmacy. It allows you to order and get your gluten-free food without the need to go through your GP. And also it means you've got more control over the amount and type of foods you order each month, up to that agreed amount I mentioned a few moments ago. And you can use the new Scottish gluten-free food service if you're in Scotland. Also, if you've got a confirmed diagnosis of celiac disease or dermatitis herpetiformis, you live in Scotland, as I say, and you're registered with a GP practice. That is it. How fantastic is that? I know the NHS is much maligned in the United Kingdom, and also it has been pointed out elsewhere around the world of its failings, but actually it's a fantastic institution, and I'm sure wherever you're listening around the world, and I know that we've got people listening in 20, 25 different countries. I'll check that out, and I'll bring you that stat in a few moments' time, in fact. Very often people point at the NHS and say it's not working, it's failed, it is itself unwell, ill, sick, dying. I think that'll show you that actually we're pretty well off over here. Now, the benefits of that service I'm talking about include the convenience of not having to visit your general practitioner every time you need a prescription, because if your pharmacy is in a supermarket, you can just go along and do that with your weekly shop. You have more control and more variety in your diet, and also the freedom to change your order each month so you can try different foods. And I'm sure you agree that is a fantastic service. So bigging it up to Scottish Gluten-Free Food Service on GFree Radio. So this week on the programme we thought we would celebrate some of the people at the bottom, if you excuse the phrase, of the food chain. These are the people at the grassroots level. These are the people who actually get their hands dirty. These are the people who wake up every morning and go into the kitchen and make and provide and prepare and sell the gluten-free food. And as well as that, they're probably also running a family, they're also doing the accounts, they're working out the logistics, they're sorting out the staff issues, the taxation, the logos, the packaging, the point of sale material, the advertising, the marketing. They are doing everything. And I think you'll agree that that's a fitting way for us to mark our first anniversary as we come up to 1 year on GFree Radio with these broadcasts, to celebrate, congratulate, to give a well-earned pat on the back to the people who, as I say, provide us with food, whether it be at cafes or farmers markets or wherever it is that we're going, which is not the supermarkets, not the big brands. So, who we're going to be hearing from in today's programme. A little bit later on, we're going to be hearing from Fiona, who runs the Honest Carrot Company. Her food, do take a look at her website. Her food is absolutely superb. It is really eye-catching, brilliantly colourful, and really different, innovative and brilliant. Also, we're going to be hearing from Kerry, who runs a fantastically named cafe in Cumbria in the northwest of England called the Elephant and Camel Cafe, and Kerry provides a whole range of gluten-free food up there. So if you're holidaying in the Lake District this year, you may want to go and check out the Elephant and Camel Cafe. But first of all, we're going to be starting off by speaking to a young lady called Deo, who we talked to in a pretty noisy hall at a food expo not so long ago. And Deo runs the company called Truly Simple Foods.
So we've got a range of gluten-free, salt-free cooking aids. So we've got cooking sauces, seasonings and purees. Like I said, they are salt-free, gluten-free with no added sugar, no artificial colourings, flavourings or preservatives. We want to keep them wholesome, pure and truly simple.
That sounds fantastic. And some nice big jars I see of the sauces, because sometimes some well-known brands are about 2/3 of that size, aren't they? And you do think to yourself, well, hold on, if I'm feeding a family, I've got to buy 2 of those jars. That's not actually cost effective.
That's it. So our jars are 350 grams. It depends on how you're cooking it and what meats you're cooking it with. That depends on how far it goes. But on average, should serve 3 to 4 people.
And let's take a look at some of those flavours. What have you got there? What's the range?
We have sun-dried tomato, red peppers and basil. We have coconut curry with spinach, which has been an absolute treat. It's really going down very well.
Yeah.
And sun-dried tomato and sweet chilli.
Which one is your big seller at the moment?
The big seller is definitely the coconut curry. Everybody's absolutely loving it. It's a Thai-inspired dish. So it's got lemongrass, ginger flavours and green chilli flavours coming through. So it's been very, very popular.
I'm looking at some of the other things you've got on the table here. Talk to me about the purees. I've not seen those kind of purees anywhere else.
Yep, so our purees are ginger puree, garlic puree and red chilli pepper puree.
So you're using these, what, if you're making a stir fry or a casserole, you just kind of squirt them in?
You can use them exactly how you want, exactly how you'd use a vegetable. It's a case of, if you're using garlic, instead of peeling it and then crushing it, just a little squeeze of ours goes a very long way. With a lot of the purees on the market, you've got a lot of salt, a lot of vinegar, a lot of sugar in it, and it completely removes the flavour. But now what we've done is made it like 95% garlic or 96% peppers, mixed with a bit of olive oil to get the right texture, and it's got absolutely fantastic flavours.
I was looking at buying some spices recently in I use the term loosely, but a whole food shop, that kind of place, and I was a bit concerned about getting them from a big bin, because I thought, I don't really know what else is in here, being a celiac myself, so I didn't. But your seasonings that you've got here, obviously you can guarantee that they are gluten-free and so on.
Yes, they are.
They're the real McCoy.
Gluten-free and salt-free, and I think our main selling point is the salt-free aspects on our seasonings, because a lot of the seasonings that are on the market, the base of them is salt, and for many people that have got high blood pressure or dealing with cardiac disease, or just in general, people are trying to reduce the amount of sodium and salt in their diets, we've got a salt-free range. It still tastes absolutely fantastic.
Okay, how do you get that taste through then? Because obviously salt is there for a purpose.
Yeah.
So how do you make your sauces and your purees so fantastic?
Well, salt is just another flavour enhancer alongside things like onion, things like garlic. These are all natural flavour enhancers. So we take out the salt and just use the other things, because sometimes salt can be a little bit too salty. Whereas with garlic and onions, it really pulls out the other flavours and goes with a lot of other herbs and spices and seasonings, great flavours in all our seasonings.
Let's talk a little bit about Deo. I made the mistake, I'll come clean. I said you're a mid-20s a bit earlier on, and you were very, very sweet and very kind, and you said, actually, I'm 21.
Yes.
This is fantastic that you're setting up your own... I blame Alan Sugar. I blame that pesky BBC programme. You're a woman that's getting into business and so on and making a go of it. Is that scary or not? You're just kind of going for it, you're determined.
To be honest, I haven't actually felt any nerves. I know it might sound a little bit cocky, but I haven't felt any nerves because I've got a great support system around me, to be honest. My mum, she's got her own business. My dad has his own business. My grandma, she's got her own business as well. So I am from a family of entrepreneurs. So it's about being bold. And like I said, my mum's there behind me, supporting me consistently. So I don't feel scared or nervous. I'm more excited about how things are going to go.
Why did you get into this business? Why was it the food? Why was it the salt-free, the gluten-free food?
My mum, she manufactures foods as well. So I was always going to work for her. But earlier this year, was speaking to the doctor and they said that I might have cardiac issues. When that came about, when you hear anything to do with the cardiac, cut the salt out in your diet. And while I was on the long waiting list to go and see the doctors at the NHS, I was looking back at all the ingredients, just trying to see how I can cut the salt out in my diet. Naturally, it's easy for me not to add salt on top of things, but when I started looking on the back of labels and actually seeing how much salt is in foods and just thinking where it was positioned on the back of the labels, I thought, there isn't actually much salt-free things out there. So even though they are gluten-free and our products have no added sugar and things, the main selling point really is salt-free. You look in America and there's got lots and lots of salt-free things in America, but there's nothing really going on in the UK, and I really wanted to push that and bring that over to the UK.
And salt can be disguised with another term, can't it?
Yes, definitely. It can be very, very disguised, very hidden. And because let's take a simple meal like spaghetti bolognese, a very common meal. You'll add salt to your pasta and water. You'd add salt. You'd have salt in the sauce. Might have a bit of salt in the beef. You'd sprinkle a bit of salt on the top, salt in the garlic bread, and salt in the cheese. So by then you've completely maximised the amount of salt in your diet just from a little, just from one simple meal. And that's what we're looking to take as much out of as much salt as we can. Take it out of simple meals, really. So
you came with up with this idea. I noticed your mum's in the food business, but you didn't give the idea to your mum. You thought to yourself, I'm going to keep this one. This is a winner,
Well, to be honest, we worked very closely in this. My mum and I are very close. We have worked hand in hand with this. The sort of packaging and the marketing side of things are what I'm really focusing on. And I'm getting manufacturers to manufacture my goods for me and just get a fantastic range out there. I want people, the manufacturers I'm looking for are always people that believe in what I believe in. So really giving people the choice to decide how much salt that they want in their diet, really giving people the choice to try different things. I know being intolerant or having allergic reactions to anything is hard for people. So if we can make it by having a wide range of things, that's exactly what we want to do. I was speaking to someone and they said, you've launched quite a few things. And I said, yeah, we have, but the wider the range, the better for people, and they can decide what they want to have, pick and choose what they want to have in their food. So yeah, we're really, really, really about making it simple for people, making it easier and keeping it truly simple.
Deo from Truly Simple Foods. It was quite a noisy haul, wasn't it? We'll catch up with Fiona from The Honest Carrot a little bit later on, after we bring you a few updates from the last couple of shows. First of all, let's hark back to what we should call ourselves. Are we celiacs? Are we people with celiac disease or people with celiac condition? How should we inform or tell other people of what we're going through and what actually defines us, if you like? Well, Jordan Middlebrook, who goes on Twitter under the name of King Gluten-Free with a terrific logo on Twitter there, says, I actually use the term celiacatea at my website, which is rather like a musketeer, I guess. So good on you, Jordan. And also Casey Cromwell, who's College Casey KC on Twitter, says, I'm traditional and surprisingly uninventive with that. College celiac is what it is. Mark Montague says, in my opinion, a celiac is acceptable shorthand and preferable to a person with celiac disease. The latter one is much more stigmatising. So we've got some great comments which have continued to come in during the course of the week, which is really, really good news. And also, we've got some more comments about our interesting situation over at Tesco's, one of the big supermarkets in the UK, and their poor labelling system on the shelves for the gluten-free food and also where the food is. Going back to what we call ourselves, need a word for celiacs that would be the same as saying I'm a diabetic, not offensive, and we don't say I am diabetes, says Gemma Ford at Gem Joys. Gluten-free brunch, who is _brunch_ on Twitter, says I'm a celiac and happy to be called so. So really, really good stuff coming through, and really appreciate the fact that you get in touch. It is gfreeradio@hotmail.com. And also you can contact us on Twitter, of course. We are at GFree Radio, as you might expect. So that comment about Tesco's, listen back to last week's show if you want to know the details about that. And Dilly Pat on Twitter said, thanks for your report on Tesco. It needed saying. I'm glad you didn't pull your punches. Also, a don't care attitude at my local as well. And we did have a comment from Tesco's during the course of the week after we recorded last week's show as well. So obviously it's only right that we bring that to you. As I say, if you want to hear that full story about what Tesco was saying, then listen back to last week's show, because all the details are there. And so they contacted us after we went into the studio last week and got in contact and says, we've spoken to the store. They'll investigate the reasons for the signs being removed and look to put them back. So at least they've cottoned on to what it is that we are talking about. One more thing, one other comment about last week's programme, and we were talking about the doctor that said that bloating wasn't necessarily down to gluten or celiac disease, and is blaming the kind of food that you eat in other areas. The FODMAP diet was what he was advocating, as we spoke on the show last week. And Kim43 Kim on Twitter said, unless this doc has celiac, he needs to shh. Gluten does indeed cause bloating for those with celiac disease. So again, really appreciate the comments. Thanks so much for getting in touch. It's GFree Radio on Twitter, and it's gfreeradio@hotmail.com if you want to get in touch via email.
Feel free for gluten-free say feel free to polish off their pasta, devour their desserts, relish their ready meals, savour their savoury bakes, munch on their muffins, grab their granolas. Whew, there's certainly lots of choice in the Feel Free for gluten-free range. Visit feelfreefoods.co.uk.
I'm Fiona Rezendi. My company is The Honest Carrot. We produce vegetarian, vegan and gluten-free food.
One of the first stands that had caught my eye, perhaps one of the most colourful stands. Some fantastic greens and purples and browns and yellows and all sorts of fantastic colours. So what have we got going on here?
Well, it's all about vegetables and colours and shapes. There's a sort of alternative veggie burgers based around vegetables. You've got a zesty carrot burger, a spicy beetroot London roast, which has got beetroot, parsnip, potato and apple in it, along with a whole load of spices. You've got royal greens, which is spinach, kale, leeks, garlic and ginger, and a spinach and chickpea roast, which is the sort of like a flat burger type thing.
They look fantastic, and they sound as though they taste fantastic as well.
It's all about taste as well, absolutely. Yes, and they're all baked, so you can eat them now, hot or cold. Take about 15 minutes in the oven. They can all be frozen.
And you've got some pies behind you as well, so tell me about the pies.
Well, we've made the pies especially for the show, actually. They're gluten-free pies. I've got a leek squash and butter bean, which is a vegan pie, and a brie and mushroom pudding, which is a nice creamy mushroom filling made with a gluten-free pastry.
Well, it's not even 10 o'clock yet, but my mouth is watering already. And what's this behind you? Because this looks as though you've got some larger things in flower pots.
Yeah, this is it's a loaf, but it's a flower pot bread, which is bread baked in a flower pot. They've got pumpkin seeds and oregano in them, and it's gluten-free. I mean, you can make flower pot bread with its traditional recipe made with wheat flour, but you actually, for the gluten-free, it's really good because it holds the moisture.
I was going to say, so this is a terracotta flower pot, obviously. Yeah, don't go doing it with a plastic one, no.
Yes, it's a normal garden centre flower pot. And it keeps the moisture in there for longer, so the bread stays a bit fluffier than some gluten-free breads can do. Now,
don't give away all your secret about your gluten-free bread, but what kinds of things have you got in there? What is in the mix?
Well, it's made with a Dove's Farm flour blend, actually, so it's anthem gum, rice, potato, and tapioca flour, and then I've mixed them up with herbs and pumpkin seeds to give it some nice flavour.
Very, very tasty. So this is the second day of the show.
It is.
How was yesterday for you?
Yeah, it was good. It was really busy. Great. Really good response. A lot of people asking about my online shop because I do deliveries across the UK. And based in London, people here in Liverpool were wondering how they get the food. So, really positive.
OK, so tell us about your online shop. Let's give you a plug.
OK, it's thehonestcarrot.co.uk. And you just go online, order by Tuesday to get things for the weekend, minimum £15 order. And I think outside of London, it's a £6.49 delivery charge. OK, but of course that is good because this is unique stuff that you presumably you cannot buy. I've not seen it in the supermarkets or anything. So No, it is unique. It's fresh, handmade stuff that we make especially for people who like good food or people with gluten intolerances, and it's great.
Fiona then from The Honest Carrot. So Kerry from the Elephant and Camel Cafe. in Bonus on Windermere is on her way in a few minutes' time. One small thing to bring you just ahead of that, and it's about the company called Freer, who we've heard from on the GFree radio show before. They're a company from Scandinavia, and essentially they specialise in frozen free-from food, and they say they're going to be ramping up their UK presence over the course of this year, focusing on the major retailers. Now, they've already got 22 items on Goodness Direct, that's the website in the UK for free from food and other food as well, which again we spoke to them on the programme before a few months ago, and they've been working with Goodness Direct since 2012. So now they want to gain traction on the ground, and by that they want to get into retailers across the country over the next year or so with their things like bread and rolls and muffins. They do puff pastry, they do pizzas and desserts as well. Gosh, there's a surprise, isn't it? There's a GFree company that does pizzas. I'm being ironic. They say that it's convenient for shoppers to buy frozen gluten-free food because they tend to freeze it anyway, because often there's only one in the family who needs or eats the product. Well, that certainly makes sense, doesn't it? Although, if you do have a family, you probably end up with having 2 freezers just for that very reason. Frozen foods and bakery products, very well accepted in Scandinavian markets, they say. They're already in Sweden, Norway, Finland and Denmark. Germany, Belgium, Italy, Switzerland and the Netherlands. And now, as I say, they want to get into the actual stores so they can have the footfall, the feet on the ground. So that's really, really interesting. They want to secure their share in the expanding UK market. So look out for Freer. We've come across them before. I'm sure there'll be the Allergy Show, which is the beginning of July, Europe's biggest allergy show. Of course, we'll be there as well in London in a few weeks' time. So that's Freer. Look out for them. I do seem to recall that their cinnamon rolls are rather fantastic and very, very special.
Okay, I'm Kerry Jones and I run a cafe up in the Sunny Lake district. Lots of liquid sunshine up there, called the Elephant and Camel Cafe, and I am a vegetarian cafe, and I offer, as a matter of course, vegan and gluten-free options at all times, including cakes. So I always have gluten-free soups and often vegan soups, and gluten-free bread to make any sandwiches, and I always have at least one and usually a choice of gluten-free cakes available.
That sounds fantastic.
Anyone that comes in.
That's very reassuring that people know that you exist. So next time, I mean, it's one of our most visited national parks, isn't it? Up in the Lake District.
Absolutely, yes. Outside of London, I think we were number one. I'm not sure whether we still are, but we were certainly number one visitor destination outside of London for a few years running. So now people know where to go to get their refreshments when they're in your neck of the woods. Absolutely. And what have you got here today? What have I got? Well, among the gluten-free options, I've got falafel and hummus and soft gingerbread and polenta cake and sesame and black pepper biscuits and breakfast bars and saffron risotto cake and caramel shortbread and corn cakes and Fuji almond cake and blueberry cheesecake. There's quite a list there. That's fantastic. That keeps you busy. Is it only you making all of this? It is. These hands did it all. Now, a couple of things that have jumped out at me there, and also on the fantastic list you've got up on the board, and that is risotto cake. Yes. Tell me about risotto cake. Risotto cake. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's arborio rice and laid in between... Which one is it? Point that out to me. Here. Oh, I've got you, yeah. I'll let you have a taste in a minute, but it's laid in between the rice are grilled aubergines and red peppers and mushrooms and mozzarella cheese. It's really, really tasty and nutritious. It makes a meal or nice as a snack. It can be hot or cold, so you can take it on picnics. It's kind of a nice solid thing that's not going to make a mess in your picnic basket, or you can warm it and throw it with a few vegetables and have it as a main meal. So from soups to main meals, you've got some snacks here, you've got some desserts,
breakfast. You got a whole meal here, haven't you?
I've got it all, absolutely. But also, obviously, I'm promoting the cafe and the fact that I do outside catering. So anyone that has any parties, whether it's christenings, birthdays, weddings, bar mitzvahs, or just the day ends in a Y, if you're planning anything and you want gluten-free or vegan guests or also for yourself and you're concerned about making sure that you're going to enjoy the party as well, then just get in touch and I can do a lovely spread for you.
And are you gluten-free yourself?
I'm not. I'm what's known as a fussy eater. So I've kind of been there where you're studying the menu and thinking what's the one thing that I can eat rather than what are the choices that I want to choose from. So I kind of get that side of it. But I have friends that are celiac and diabetic and vegan and dairy-free and every other combination. So I wanted to create a space that was as inclusive as possible and to kind of fill a gap in the market, because there are obviously lots of cafes in Bonus, but they all serve full English breakfasts, which if you don't eat meat for whatever reason, or you're particular about your meat, then there's nowhere for you to go and not be reassured that it's not cooked in the fat that had bacon in it 5 minutes ago.
And what's the reaction when people come to the Elephant and Camel Cafe? Let's give it another plug. Bonus on Windermere.
Thank you very much. I have a lot of people that come. I'm becoming a bit of a destination cafe, obviously, for the people that have allergies or dietary restrictions. So people are seeking me out now, but obviously anything that gets my name out there more and is always very welcomed.
Well, we've got some people who are looking at this. So I'll let you talk to them. One more thing just before you go. Why Elephant and Camel Cafe?
Because I wanted to create food that had a bit of an Asian, Middle Eastern twist to it, again to fill a gap in the market among the cafes in Bonus, and I wanted a name that reflected that, and Elephant and Camel just popped into my head one day, and it was kind of a eureka moment. That's the one!
Kerry from the Elephant and Camel Cafe. So, as I said earlier, if you're in the Lake District in the northwest of England at any time, why don't you check her out? And the Elephant and Camel Cafe is in Bowness on Windermere. From elephants and camels to a little bird. And our tweets of the week this week. So we've got a few more responses here. And Michelle F. on Twitter said, "I'm sick of the rude gluten comments." Yes, I'm sure you're aware as I am that when you go through your timeline, certainly on Twitter, you can get an awful lot of rude comments. The kryptonite one was one that I have now blocked from my particular feed. But Michelle says, "Being gluten-free keeps me alive. Make fun of chemotherapy or insulin for a while." So she was getting her own back on someone that had posted something rather offensive. So, in fact, can we actually see on this? Because we do this live. We can't actually see what it was that someone called Stephen actually posted that made Michelle react in that way. But interesting stuff. And we do feel for you, Michelle, and you just got to let it ride over you, I guess. A few other things, because Tom Opie, who goes on Twitter under the name of Leet Drop Bears. No, sorry, I Eat Drop Bears, beg your pardon, says, "Seriously good initiative, GFree Radio." Thank you so much for that, because it is our first anniversary, our first year of doing the GFree Radio show. Another comment here, just going through the timeline. We do this live. We're trying to save the planet by not printing all of these off, you see. Ira Belafonte says, "My mother wants me to get tested for celiacs. It'll be punishment for my little gluten joke the other day." Oh, dear, oh dear. Should we set Michelle on you, shall we, Ira, and see how that works out? Also, we got a comment from Abigail McQuatters, who says, "If corn was gluten-free, life would be so much healthier and easier." Yeah, that's true, isn't it? You do go to the gluten-free aisle, and you see some other things there which are free from because of for the vegetarians, and you think, but you know what? I could have some of that as well. But look, it's got wheat in, or it's got corn in, or oh dear, it does reduce the amount of food and the range of food that you can that you can have even further. Kim McGowan on Twitter says, interesting show, number 54. Great talk, confirmed many of my thoughts about own experiences. That was the conversation that we were having a few weeks ago with Advanced Nutrition. And what else have we got here? Hello everyone, check out GFree Radio Talk Show. It's awesome, says Celiac Nick. Love your shows. Thank you so much. So, and she asked us to point people in the direction of her blog. So that's Celiac, American spelling, celiac-nick.blogspot.com. You'll forgive us as we're coming up to our first birthday if we mention a few other nice messages that we've had. Congratulations on doing the show for a year. It's great to get the word out, says the Gluten Alarm on Twitter. We've got another comment here from Vicky, which has just come in the last few minutes that we've just spotted. Why should I be offended if someone calls me a celiac? It might only be a part of me, but I am a celiac. So that harks back to something that we were talking about a little bit earlier on. So those are our tweets from the week, from the last 7 days. If you've got something that you think we should be talking about, some pithy comment, a reaction to the show, you want to alert us to something you've seen, maybe a report that you've seen, or maybe a blog you've written, or a food that you're producing, or an event you're organising, then do let us know. It's gfreeradio@hotmail.com. On Twitter, we are at gfreeradio. And that's about it for another 7 days. Thank you for the loan of your ears. And don't forget, please do spread the word about GFree Radio. It is the world's only podcast for those who are on a GFree diet or who suffer or have the symptoms of celiac disease. Take care.